The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
What are you doing?
Hey, Mark Littell. How are you, sir?
I'm doing fine, Ralph.
Oh, good. Maybe we could talk a little bit and go to Littell's Corner on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. How about that?
That sounds great.
Good.
That sounds great.
Mark, first of all and foremost, how's your health been?
Actually, I'm feeling pretty good. Hasn't been like this in a long time.
Nice.
I'm ready to kick some butt. Go here, go there. I'm just getting everything in place to go probably talk to some veterans here in September, October.
Well, that's one of the things that I want to talk to you about. We're both about the same age. I might be a little older than you, but we're not going to quibble. And we're both veterans. You're a veteran in the sense that your dad was a Korean hero, not just a veteran, but he was a war hero. And so the cause of veterans is very near and dear to us both. And I just want to ask your reaction. We lost a Republican, a congressman, a mixed bag of a guy, John McCain.
Oh, yeah.
What comes to mind when we talk about John McCain, when folks talk about him? How are you going to miss him?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is I spent almost 30 years down in Arizona where he's from. And, that's a given right there. Mm-hmm. And I think he died up in Prescott where he had a ranch, if I'm not mistaken. But John McCain, no matter Republican or Democrat, was a hero as well. And he chose, he could have taken a slighter walk to get out of that country, but he stayed with it for 5.5 years.
His dad was a Navy big shot, and he could have gotten out or
granddad,
or something like that. It takes a very special guy to put himself second to his fellow prisoners who wouldn't have gotten out at that time. So he stayed, he stuck around. But I want to know from you, how does John McCain advance the veterans program all those years? He was in Arizona, and speak to his unrelenting passion for making it good for the GI.
Well, that's a given, I guess, because of, where he had been. Mm-hmm. And he was in touch with the right people, which, there's some people that probably didn't like some of the things he said, and then there's a lot of people that did. I try to look at the positive side of the whole thing. And, he's done so much, and he's done so much in so many areas. His wife, Cindy, I know, she was also by his side just about every minute, except on the floor. Mm-hmm. And she was a big help as well. And he had to suffer because he had 2 broken bones. He had 3 broken bones. He had both arms and his leg. And, for a period of time, they just treated him like dirt. And then they found out about him being an admiral's son. So he had some a lot of time to think right there. Mm-hmm. And
hey, listen, come out 5 years of being captured.
Oh gosh!
And
he was there 5.5 years. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, you can only imagine what he ate. You look at the picture when he came out, when he went in, when he came out. He was interrogated. He said, "No way! I'm just going to go out here and be John McCain, and I'm not going to go home early and be the weak sister." And he wasn't. He stayed with his men.
His spirit wasn't broken, and his humor remained intact. it's really sad, but one of his colleagues said that in a way it's a blessing because for the first time in a long time he's out of pain, and just have to go with that as a positive for the whole thing. Okay.
Well, you look at Arizona too, because we've got so many issues going on there. It's a border state, and we have a lot of issues going on down there, and it's tough. I mean, I think it's tough to run that state.
Why were, of course, they have different ideologies. But what made Trump and McCain go at it like they did? Was McCain just too honest?
Well, I think Trump thought McCain buried him or backstabbed him, and I don't know that was the case. And I wish that I kind of like Trump in some areas, but I sure don't like him in other areas. And it's kind of like a Jekyll and Hyde. Because I just sat there and I look at this and I said, come on, this guy's been through everything imaginable, which we already know, and he doesn't even know what he's been through. But, you try to walk in somebody else's shoes, and then you try to put yourself there. That's what most people need to do, and a lot of people don't do that. And, there has to be a point where you show some compassion. And
for the family, for crying out loud, they put the flag at half mast and take it up. That's not done for anybody who's done. And the American Legion had to talk to him like a little boy, a petulant little boy. I understand that.
It's terrible. And it's they had to write a letter and come in there and say, hey, what's going on? This is our guy here. At least showing for a week that this man was a big part of this country. And, that's all you're asking for is a week even. 5 days to a week.
If the man didn't have bone spurs to get out of the service himself, you could almost understand that McCain may not have been his cup of tea. But here's a man who gave his life in service for the country, not just in the service, but when he got out, he spent like 40 years in Congress. So, I'm
surprised he stayed so tight for 40 years, because he could have folded at any time. And he lived his life to 81 years old, young, in a sense, because he was quite vibrant all the way up to the end. And he's vocal, and, until I'm sure the last few days, he's still sharp, so.
He might have looked back and said that picking a vice presidential candidate that still colors might not have been the best decision he ever made, but he was such a modest guy. He says, when you look at me, I'm a human being. I make mistakes. I crashed 2 airplanes. And so he's the kind of guy that could come across the aisle in Congress and communicate. And that's what we need, because we're so polarized that it's going to be someone like him eventually that's going to bring us together. I don't know who that person is going to be, but let's hope that he or she comes out of the woodwork really fast. And that.
Well, I think one of the hardest things we've got going too is, I know I've said this before, is when I was going through the ranks professionally in baseball in the early 70s, we had 160 million people. Now we have 320 million people in this country to deal with.
Right.
So technology and the number of people is that's an issue. I think at 250 million, 270 million, we did okay. But once we pushed upward, it was getting a little bit tough.
Well, speaking of that, what if Trump doesn't, or if Trump doesn't stay, unless he's impeached by reason of treason, we get Pence. I think it's my understanding that if they get him for treason, everybody in his cabinet, including the vice president, goes. That said, talking about population, Pence wants to basically eliminate all kinds of, birth control, the whole thing that Pence is going to set womanhood back many, many years. So that's not going to improve the population.
Well, my mom felt like that as a Head Start nurse, I know. Not like that, but I mean the other side of it rather. And she's pretty open about it. Because, you see a lot of poverty and things of that nature. And, they're trying to make things work.
We got to talk a little ball while I got you. And I'm going to give you a question that you could answer in any way that you want. It's a two-part question. What do you miss about baseball in your day? And what do you think is a positive about baseball in today that wasn't around in your day? In other words, what's the worst thing that's not there? What are the things you miss, and what are the things that you say, wow, baseball's progressed a little bit. I like this aspect of it. Start with what you miss.
What I really miss is the camaraderie, of a baseball player. And I don't know if that camaraderie is still the same because there's so much money flying around, in that clubhouse. And I know there's probably little secrets and stuff like that, but when you walked into a clubhouse back when I was playing, if you threw a 2-hit shutout, I mean, you were still going to get your ass jumped probably by somebody. And then if you got hammered, you were still going to get thrown around the bus right there in front of everybody by somebody. And you kind of watch that, so you have to be on your guard all the time back then. And right now, I think it's a little bit different. If you offend somebody, so maybe they might go to the crying wall, but whatever. And then right now, I do like the side the improvement. I like is technology. Of course, you can sit at home and watch baseball on television and enjoy the game actually because of the way the cameramen are, and you don't have to go to the ballpark. But if you're going to go out to a ball game, it's really nice that you can pick a really good night. That's wonderful. But if you pick a rainy night, it's off and on, or it's a cold night, or it's hotter than hell, that's a tough one. When you buy those season tickets. And I don't mind people buying season tickets because that's what makes the world go round. But you've also got the television contracts nowadays as well, to where you can watch any baseball game in any part of this country by just flipping your set on. And that's about it. The technology of this whole game. The umpires, I think they probably have improved in a sense. The one thing about the umpires, I just put something out. You probably saw it maybe about Dick Stello, for instance. And somebody else said to me, they said, well, I didn't know you guys were that close. Well, I mean, you're kind of family in a sense, The umpires are considered the third team. So we had to be on our behavior as well. I know one thing is I wanted to get the umpires on my side. I didn't want them against me. So when you're a pitcher, I remember an umpire coming out one time. I gave him my hands up, and I turned around, and he was right at the base of me.
You didn't like
right
that.
There. He didn't like that at all, and he had 21 years in the big leagues, and I was just 20 at the time.
Oh, wow.
And Nestor Shilak, what a great one, the Hall of Fame umpire.
Remember the name really well. You mentioned a third team. It's like going to work every day, and the periphery, you have somebody that you work with. They're not in your division where you work, but they're there, and it's almost like you have human interaction, and some of it's going to go good, and some of it's going to go bad. Now, a lot of it depends on how short a memory these guys have. Like you threw your hand up, and he admonished you then, I'm sure, in so many words. Did he forget about it after a while? Was he able?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
you and he had sort of a civil relationship after that. That's good.
Well, the funny thing was that's what shed me. He ate my ass out really hard out there on the mound, and then he looked at me and he said, "Hey kid, take it easy, enjoy the game." Then he clacked his teeth at me with his dentures. So he was trying to tell me, loosen up and just enjoy the ride here. I'm gonna let you.
That's good. Were there any umpires that weren't that way, that would hold a grudge and not just
Lou DeMiro? I mean, he was a little Italian guy. Not that it matters, Italian, don't get me wrong. Right. I'm a big Nazi-head German guy. But, I mean, I'm sitting there, looking at, he, for some reason, he had a tight zone. When I went and came in to pitch and I had him, I went, crap, I think a lot of pitchers did, actually. So, but, that was just one.
Okay.
I mean, they're going to miss pitches, but, I like Lee Wire quite a bit. I like Eric, the black guy. He was really good. He was fun. Tex, he was good. Yeah.
Now, do you like it that baseball has gone to umpires being under the auspices of Major League Baseball as opposed to the individual leagues? Do you think that makes for a better game altogether? Well,
it keeps it the same as far as the strike zone goes. They used to have, years ago, they had different balls in each league, and then they cut that out at around 73 or 4, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And they also stopped with the baseball. And they went from horsehide to cowhide, which is Holstein cowhide, and that's what they use on baseballs right now.
Didn't know that.
Well, you got a sheep in there for wool for the winding, and then you've got a cowhide on the outside. You've got one continuous seam. It's not 4 seams or 2 seams. You have 108 stitches. You have 9 inches in circumference. The ball's made in China, so don't sniff it or you get SARS and die. And it has 108 stitches can also correlate with the rosary, because there's 108 beads on a rosary, as there are 108 seams with the baseball. So there you go.
You are such a storyteller, and the one thing that you haven't ever done is read a story from a book. And you sent me a story and a message on Facebook. I don't know it was for everybody. You didn't post it, this particular story on your thing. Would you be good enough to read that story for us in your own voice? I mean, reading and writing is one thing.
Right.
The one, it was
it
was the one you said. Yeah.
Well, there's one I got just here. As a matter of fact, I didn't even put that. I just wrote that today or yesterday.
All right.
And I just put it on my phone. Actually, I can't even really get to it.
All right.
But I will read it for you next time.
All right.
For
well,
sure.
How about the Stello one? Can you read the Stello one?
I didn't even. Well, I mean, yeah. Well, I got to pull my computer up here.
All right.
Let me get a little prepared next time, and I will read, because I like to read the things, and because if you read them out and you read them with the voice, then you can, you maybe hear my voice. And
absolutely, that's what I'm going for. So how about this? We take a break. We pause for the cause.
Sure.
We both hang up, and I'll call you and touch
bases
with you. 5 minutes,
yep.
And you can read to us. I look forward to that. The break is this. It's the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Ralph Tyko. The segment is Closing It Out with Littell. Mark is a major league closer in 2 leagues, in the American League and the National League, and there's something about a closer's mentality. I get to talk to Skip Blackwood. I get to talk to you, and there's certain something. You're not afraid of much. When you go out in front of 55,000 people on the mound in a playoff or a World Series or whatever, any important game, and you go through the rest of your life, you're not that afraid. So let's take this as a break. We'll see you in 5 and call you then, Mark.
Sounds good.
All right.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Back. Mark Littell. I'm Ralph Tyko, Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. And Mark is going to read for us. Boy, that's exciting for me. I love to hear your country voice.
Well, this story that I have will be part of a probably 15 or vignette type little readings in a chapter I'm going to call Sweeping Out the Shop. Okay. And the name of this it's called And It's a Double. It goes like this. In 1979, when I was pitching for the Cardinals, I had around 5 years in the show. Kind of had a little tenure. I don't remember the game, but this was all about the moment. You know, timing is everything. I throw out a ground ball to shortstop Gary Templeton as first baseman Keith Hernandez now starts to throw the ball around the horn for out number 2. As I turn around, Dick Stello, who was the plate umpire, is more than halfway to the mound. Keith starts walking to the mound as if he knows something is up. You got to remember, we're playing baseball at its best. Mm-hmm. I had just gotten the ball back from third baseman Ken Reitz. He didn't come over as he settled in with both his arms and legs crossed as he had pretty much parked his horse. Most of the time, we called him Crazy Horse. Had some engine in him, so you had to watch him. Just like a pop-off whistle, he could lose it at any time. With the crowd noise, I could still hear Dick Stello yell out, "Hey, country!" And by the way, this would be my first time I had him calling balls and strikes. Said, "Yeah, Hondo." That's Keith. We called him Hondo. 2 was now approaching the mound. Dick makes it up to pay dirt as all 3 of us settle in. I'm thinking this is not going to be a rocks, paper, scissors moment. You ever see a picture of my wife? I said, no, I haven't. Keith had this shit-eating grin all across his face, and I'm thinking, what's going on? Did he find this? Did he know this drill? He dug into the back pocket and pulls out his wallet. He starts rifling through his plastic and stops to show me the picture of his wife. I did a double take as he shows me this picture of a naked gal with some humongous tatas. And let me see here. I just skipped really quick, but she did have some humongous tatas on that picture, I do believe.
Did the tatas ruin your concentration there?
That's why we call it, we're going out for doubles here all the way. And so, as a matter of fact, this picture, I'm sitting there looking at this, and he digs into his back pocket and he pulls this out, and I said, that's some humongous tatas. And I said, whoa, that's your wife? And Dick responds, yeah. I said, nice knockers. And Keith's cracking up with his face it's basically inserted into his big first baseman's mitt, trying to not make it obvious to the fans that the big gun, with the big gun binoculars. I do the old, well, holy shit. And then we all chuckle, and Dick whips his wallet back into his backside and shouts out, let's play some ball. And then I get the third out, and as we make it down into the dugout, Keith said, yep, Dick, just showed country his wife's picture. Well, come to find out that she was a stripper. She went by the name of Chesty Morgan. I just figured everybody had God-given talent. Yes. Yeah, you just never stop learning this game of baseball, and I really like those 44s coming at me. And so that's talking about, it's a double. And that's exactly what I saw.
And that was 30 years ago. Picture those 44s tomorrow morning.
Exactly.
I hate to take away from your memory, but things change. I hope she had more to her than just the 44s. But if not, to be remembered for something is okay by me.
I tell you what, she was a really sharp gal, but Dick Stello was married to her from 1973 to 1979, the year that this happened, 79. And she was born in Poland, and she became a stripper, I guess. But she lives in Florida. She's 80 years old right now, and she has some rental properties down there, and she stays busy.
Oh. Okay, so you really know where she'll be tomorrow morning, and that's good. That's good. We should all be so lucky, for crying out loud. Is Dick Stello is he still with us, or passed?
He passed actually shortly. I think around in the 80s sometime. It was like really quick. He went fast, and but she hung on for dear life. And you know, she's still breathing. She got a lot of lung capacity, it looks like. So,
okay. Hey, Mark, how do you write? Do you write when something comes to you, or do you write when you make an appointment with yourself to sit down and write, or do you take notes along the day and transcribe them? How do you put together a book?
You know, I do take notes throughout the day sometimes. And I'll take, you know, certain words that I used to use myself and that I had forgotten, and I put them in, you know, sentences and paragraphs that, you know, for placement, and try to fit them around. That's going to read out better if somebody else. I didn't have that really in front of me laid out, but I can make that read better the second time around. But it'll. You know, I just want the people to hear my voice more than anything.
Oh no, I'm just talking in general.
Oh no. I mean, when I write, I want them to hear my voice too, because
okay.
I don't want to.
I got you.
Yeah, you know, I might. I'll do a story at a time. Basically, when I feel the urge right there, and I said, okay, now I can write this. You know, now I'm ready to write it and put it down, and then you know I'll go back over it 3 and 4 times. You know, just to make, this doesn't sound right. This part didn't sound right. I got to use a different word here, and you know.
If there's a story going on in your head, do you ever stay in contact with guys that lived it and go back and revisit the memory together and see how they perceived the situation, and right from there, do you?
Yes, I do actually, because right now on the third book, I'm going back over my 18 years of coaching, and I'm asking really a lot of the players and some of the managers even, what were some of the really stupid, funny things that happened on the field with me, which there are a lot, I guess. Right. And you know, they talk about it, and you know, you want to bring those out, and you know, and my thoughts as well during that season, you know. The first 2 years I coached, you know, we finished dead last with the teams that I was with, and then the next 2 years I got rings. So that was pretty wild.
Okay. Did you enjoy, if it weren't the money involved at all, and I know there's no comparison between being in the bigs and being in the minors, but I'm just talking fun-wise. Was it more fun in the minors?
Sure, without a doubt. You get to see all these rookie kids, these new kids, or A-ball, AA. AAA is tough. I never liked AAA because you always got to fight them, it seems like, to be able to pitch. You know, they're coming down to the big leagues, and they're half-ass pissed off anyway. They're saying, well, why am I here? And I said, well, they didn't really like your 7 ERA, first of all.
They liked it for a while, but then they looked at it and they said, wow, no.
I said, yeah, I give them the 48-hour treatment. I said, listen, okay, I just gave you 48 hours. You know, if you're still pissed and you don't want to pitch and you don't want to do this and that and everything else, there's 3 things you can do. 1, nobody wants you. We can't trade you for that reason, the 7 ERA. Number 2, you can fight me and I'm going to win either way. It doesn't matter. And then 3, you can go out and pitch and try to improve and get back to the big leagues, or, you know, it's just the way it is, folks. So,
do you have a good positive story of somebody that you helped who was on their way down and they were negative for a while, and then they got into the program and you helped them get back?
good grief, there's a lot of those.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a guy named Prokopec that was in Double-A with me. And, he's from Australia, and so, the Dodgers were really high on him at the time.
Now, this was this was the Brewer organization. I remember Nielsen.
Nielsen was with the Brewers, but this was Prokopec, who was a pitcher, and he was with the Dodgers at the time.
Oh,
so
I didn't say it was him, but they had a lot of, the Brewers had a lot of Australian players in your day.
Yes. Yeah, Graham Lloyd and the other guy, I can't even think, right? But yeah, you had Dave Nielsen, and I was over in Australia for 4 years. That's another song and dance, which that's funny. There's some funny things right there too. But when you go over and Prokopec, the Dodger guys were sitting there talking to me in the meeting and said, "Hey, it'd be nice if you could get Prokopec, his brain right, to actually focus, because he had a pretty good arm." And he did, and he ended up being almost, I think, pitcher of the year kind of, because he left. He went to the big leagues, actually. He had punched out like 129 and 140 innings and walked only maybe less than 20 at the time.
Wow.
So, I mean,
nice
he really believed in what I was helping him with. And I think it takes certain individuals. We're all not going to hit a home run, but he went up to the Dodgers. He threw, and he didn't come back down. Actually, he ended up getting traded. And I want to say he was with Montreal or somebody, and they ended up hurting his arm. But, you see a lot of stuff like that. And we had some I had a pitcher that was actually a Cy Young guy. I should think of his name. He was with the Cubs, and so off-speed pitcher, just great changeup, and absolutely great changeup. And then I got knuckleball guy one time. I usually caught my guys, believe it or not. I usually caught them because I like getting back there and catch. And you'll see in the next book, probably I'll have Rick Wilson, who was the scouting director for the Angels forever. And I was with him over 7 years with the Brewers, and we became good friends. I'll probably have him write my forward maybe. And he remembers me going out there and catching my guys barefooted, just like a country guy, I wouldn't have chest protector and shin guards. Sometimes I put a mask on. I got knocked out. Well, kind of knocked out one time in Vegas catching one of the guys.
You took the glasses off, I hope.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing was that in Vegas, I was down there. I was waiting for my damn, catcher to come down because I said, well, shit, I'll warm him up. And it was Ross Grimsley at the time, and not Ross Grimsley, but the other Ross. And I've got so many names in my head right now. But anyway, he threw really well, and it just glanced off my glove and hit me, and I went, and everybody heard it. And I was getting ready to go in the game, and Jason Grimsley, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. The Yankee guy, yeah, right.
We're agreed, I think, that baseball, so much of it is mental.
Oh gosh.
Who can you cite as someone who was incredibly skilled athletically, beyond his peers, and who just couldn't get it together mentally to progress up the line? Anybody come to mind, a minor leaguer that was tearing it up and just either his demons or whatever it was prevented him from making it?
There's a lot of those guys. There's tons of those guys. I mean, you can even look at big league ball players, but take Nolan Ryan, for instance. Great arm, great body, just passion for pitching. He didn't really become a pitcher until the last 7 years of his career. I mean, and he punched out 5,000. He would lose a ball game 2-1, 3-2, because he would make a mistake with maybe a breaking ball, and he had a great breaking ball, maybe better than his fastball. But at the end of the game, he would walk somebody maybe, which he had tendencies to do, and then somebody get a Gork hit, and then he'd make a mistake, and somebody else would get a Gork hit, and then he would check out the next two, and he'd end up losing the ball game. And but he got really smart when he started turning the ball over the last 7 years of his career, because he really didn't have that real quality type changeup. And so when he started turning the ball over just a little bit with the two-seam, that became his changeup.
Now, did he develop that? How does a guy like that, who's had success before those 7 years, he was having some success, obviously.
Great.
Getting a
almost a 500 pitcher, though.
Strikeout, right. How does a man like that make the transformation? Did a coach talk to him? Did he pick it up on his own? A fellow player? What was it that got him to turn the ball over like that? Because with pride, he probably thought he can get any fastball by anybody at any time. And big league ball players, you can't always do that. So, but how does a stubborn guy, even if he's not stubborn, how does he make the change? How does he go about that?
It's a wake-up call, because you got to tell yourself the truth. If you don't tell yourself the truth, you won't go up the ladder, and you won't. And the one thing about professional baseball is it's hard to get there, but it's harder to stay. So for him to be at his top of his game and say, and he probably woke up one morning and he said, "Jesus Christ, I've got 3,500 strikeouts, and I'm sitting here and I'm a 500 pitcher, and I'm better than a 500 pitcher." So he probably said, "What do I really have to do?" He said, "I think I'm going to start turning the ball over just a little bit." His arm probably took a little bit of a hit, not much, but he probably said that, said, maybe I better be a smarter pitcher.
Right.
So that's exactly what might have happened to Nolan Ryan. He was better, the last 7 years of his career. In every sense, I mean, he had dynamic shit,
Well, speaking of that, you pitched in the same years as J.R. Richards.
Oh, there's another guy I was going to bring up. Yeah, J.R. Yeah.
I saw him at an kind of an old timers day with Houston that they had running in, and I thought, there's a tragedy. Right in the peak of his career, couldn't have been 30, suffers a stroke. And
I was there the day that he did it, because we were playing in Houston. JR was running around. I had gone out early. Richie and I had gone out there early to the park. We were on the bench at the time. Nobody was in the park. They hadn't even started batting practice. JR's running. He comes by. He nods his head. "How you doing?" Basically. Hey, JR. Richie says, "Hey, JR." I think Richie knew him a little bit. And he was trying to be nice to him so he wouldn't hit him anyway. And so, he runs a couple more laps. We're just kind of, watching. And all of a sudden he goes down right behind first base, right down the line on the right field line. And we thought he was just, just out of breath, and he was just kind of laying there on the ground. Well, he wasn't laying on the ground. He had a stroke.
Wow.
Right there. That was it. And
you saw it.
I saw it. Yeah, sure did. One of three, maybe, or four people out there on that field. There wasn't very many people there. Like I said, they hadn't even started setting up for batting practice even. So it was early, very early.
Yeah. You couldn't wait to get to the park. It sounds like you couldn't wait to get to the park on an average day.
The park's the best place to be.
Nice.
That's your quiet time, and you can settle in just a little bit and clear your brain a little bit, and just nonchalantly think about what's going to happen tonight and possibly what you might end up facing. So you look at worst case scenarios and you calm yourself through that worst case scenario. Okay. And so when you come into the game, you've already done it, been there, seen it, done it. Game's over, I win. Another game tomorrow.
Visualization.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, Bill Harrison, I was probably one of the first to do the visualization thing, Dr. Bill Harrison. I got a lot of ink off of that, because I don't know where I would have been had Bill not come along. I was like 9-1 in AAA. I didn't even go to big league camp. I was 20 years old, and all of a sudden here's this Mark Littell. What's he doing? 9-1, and we got to pull this kid up, otherwise somebody's going to grab him.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what happened.
And
I learned how to focus.
And Whitey brought you up, am I correct?
No, actually, McKeon, was my first one in 73, but I hurt my arm in 74. That group, I got in like 300 and something innings between AAA, big leagues, winter ball, just totally abused. They felt more was better, but, that wasn't the case.
Sometimes it is, but...
Yeah, but, there's what I did was only... If you look at some of the stuff down the line, I'm talking about a different subject in the matter, because there's only 40 of us that pitched 60-plus appearances with 100 innings plus. There's only 40 of us have ever done that one. Three times. And I did it. We did it 3 times. Three times at least. And so I did mine 3 times. And that's a lot of crap on you right there.
Right.
And that's not getting dry humped. That dry hump means not getting into the ball game.
Right. So that... And those innings aren't even calculated. So, those pitches aren't calculated.
No.
As a typical athlete, retired years later, are there aches and pains that you experience that, like shoulder, arm, elbow, that kind of thing on a daily basis that makes you, it almost feels good because you remember the battles. But
I think as we all get older, I think our hips and our knees take a beating, and you got to catch your weight on that front side. You have on the front side, which is the left leg. I've had 2 knee surgeries, and that's meniscus. So that's just standard procedure to go through that after you get out.
Right.
And then the elbow. Of course, I've had 2 surgeries, and it is what it is. I can still throw batting practice. Doesn't matter. To this day, at 65, I can still throw batting practice.
Nice.
And just pick it up and go because I threw so much of it.
And you did rehab when you were injured.
Oh gosh. Well, the first time they didn't really have rehab clinics when I was in 73. My mom was a nurse, obviously, and she actually rehabbed me.
Wow.
So that was a good thing, And back in the second surgery, I had a little bit of rehab with trainers. They were getting a little bit more educated at that time.
And
the training,
you yourself became a rehab coach.
Yeah. With Milwaukee, I was kind of worked with the rehab guys in spring training and extended before I went to rookie ball. And, you try to help them, and it's really easy to see what's going on. And you might even put them on film, and you're out there with a trainer. And then the doctors have their say, and the trainers out there, and I have a little bit of say as well. I think we all do.
Right.
Try to get them healthy. And you're trying to keep those guys healthy. That's a big factor. And they might have to make a little bit of a change. They might have to tweak it a little bit, but and that's hard to do sometimes, is to tweak it.
Mm-hmm.
And they know that. So it's
and they're probably reluctant to get away from what brought them to success.
Exactly.
And it takes trust in the coach. Now, I know how you establish trust because we've talked and we've known each other, and you do it through eye contact. And when you get to know somebody, you're there for them. You're present. And how many coaches and managers don't share that? And when you were coming up, was there someone or anyone that really greased the way for you along those lines by keeping the lines of communication open?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, the guy that signed me, Gary Blaylock, he ended up being the pitching coach in '85 for the Royals when they won it the first time. And Gary's from like 10, 12 miles from where I grew up, and he actually signed me. I didn't think the Royals were going to sign me.
He was Kansas City A's, and I think the Yankees owned him at one time.
He was a Cardinal for 1 year, playing time, and then Yankees he did some work actually with the Yankees in scouting. He was either a big time scout, and back then those scouts, man, they went all over the place because it's nothing like today. they had maybe 20 scouts then, where they have 50 or 60 now. And they got international scouts, Pacific Rim scouts, Europe scouts, scouts for Africa, scouts for South America, wherever.
Yeah.
They're all over the joint. China, whoever.
And it's different. A major league scout is different than the free agent scout.
Right.
The amateur scouts, they're looking for different things. What do they look? Now it's just speed. A big guy who can throw. Is there anybody out there looking for somebody, looking for the hook, somebody that doesn't fall under the category of just this big bruiser? Maybe can mix it up. Are there scouts that look for the Bobby Chances of the world? I really think what they're looking for is somebody that's going to be durable. But the other factor is velocity. That's the new word, velocity. And the thing about velocity is if you got a guy with a lot of velocity, he's going to end up breaking. I mean, I wish they would really go after some of these kids that are 89 to 93 or 92. And then they're going to grow into a few more miles an hour and just settle in and learn how to pitch versus, bring all the heat up there. Because once they start bringing all the velocity up there, the ball straightens out, and the hitters, they knock the living shit out of it. It's right there in their zone, and they will. And they're short on, pitching, so they can't throw an off-speed pitch so well, maybe, or a breaking ball so well. Oh, well, I've got a fastball, but it's straight. Too bad. So they get hammered. Okay.
And, it's just the way it is.
Mark, the last thing I wanted to talk to you about is the Tampa Bay Rays.
Why them? Okay, good.
Why them? Because they've got this new pitching philosophy where they think that if a pitcher goes through the lineup more than twice, he's inordinately less effective. Now, what they don't realize is that the relief pitcher that they bring in may be even less effective than the guy going through the lineup. That said, what Tampa's doing, they are starting the game with a relief pitcher, having him pitch an inning or two, then having the starter come in, and then go to the late inning relief pitchers, have the starter work 5-6 innings, go to the relief pitchers, and they're winning.
Well, the funny thing is that has been said years ago. I cannot remember who said it, but it makes a little bit of sense because they said that you'd be going 3, 3, and 3, and then you go into the closer type guys, and if you're there, use your closer or your setup guy as a closer, even if you're overusing that guy. So it makes sense. We do that in the minor leagues actually because we'll double up on starters, and so what? The one guy starts the one time. And he'll go so many pitches, 75 pitches, say, and it gets him through 4 innings. We give him a chance to get the win, okay? So that's 15 pitches an inning, for 5 innings. So at 75. So what happens is we throw him 75 pitches because these guys have been beat up a lot of times, these college kids and some of these high school kids even. So what happens is the guy that's throwing behind him, he'll start the next time, and that guy will go to the second place. So you flip-flop them. And that's exactly, you flip-flop those guys.
Right. And it keeps everybody happy on the staff.
Oh, in rookie ball it does. Yeah, and it's a pretty good experiment. Because I think most organizations even do it, at the minor leagues because you're trying to protect those young arms. And, if you're talking about, throwing somebody 3 to 4 innings or whatever they're doing, depending on the pitcher, you might want to start this guy tonight and say, hey, let's see if we can get 3 innings. And he already knows what they're trying to do. So you give him a plan and you tell him up front, we're going to try to get 3 innings out of you. So hopefully, that's going to be, 45 pitches at the most. So you're looking at 15.
How much better does a pitcher perform when he has his role set? Does that help you, or sometimes the not knowing is better?
Depends on who the individual is. Good point, but it depends on who the individual is. But on the other hand, I think everybody likes to know. And but I think the tough guys like not knowing sometimes. They say, you can pitch me anytime. So it's almost like a closer mentality.
Right.
And starters get sometimes pissed off when they say, why am I not pitching tonight? They have the anal mentality. They're real anal about it.
As a closer, when did it become work time? Was it like the sixth or seventh inning when?
Yo, Philly, how you's doing? Welcome to Philadelphia baseball, past, present, and personal. I'm Bill Kashatus, your host on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. This week, we're going to give you a preview of this week's Phillies-Cubs series at Citizens Bank Park. At present, the Fightin' Phils, with a record of 70-61, are in second place in the National League East, 3.5 games behind the first-place Braves and 2.5 games behind St. Louis in the wild card standings. Over the last weekend, they lost 2 of 3 in Toronto and have lost the first 2 games in a 3-game series to the Nationals this week. As we speak, they are now playing the 3rd game of that series. The Cubs, on the other hand, have a 77-53 record and are in first place in the National League Central, 4.5 games ahead of second-place Milwaukee. They're also on a 6-game winning streak. My guest is a longtime Cubs fan and dear friend, Bill Vaseelopulos. Bill will help us break down the upcoming 3-game series, talk a little bit about the Cubs' recent acquisitions, including former Philly Cole Hamels. Welcome to the podcast, Bill.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate being here.
Bill, last time we spoke on this podcast was in early June when the Phillies were out in Chicago. And while the Cubs have taken over first place in the NL Central since then, not much has changed for the Phillies, who were 3 games behind the NL Eastern Division leading Braves at that time, although back then they were in 3rd place, just behind the Washington Nationals. The Cubs, however, seem to have improved their fortunes with the acquisition of former Philly Cole Hamels to their starting rotation. Hamels, who is 5-0 with a .69 ERA since joining the team at the trading deadline, has been a huge upgrade over Yu Darvish and Tyler Chatwood. I know Darvish is done for the season. Last I heard, Chatwood was on the DL, but you can update us on that. Another factor has been the offensive performances of second baseman Javier Baez, who leads the NL in RBIs with 97, and is in the top 10 NL leaders in homers. And then, of course, left fielder Ben Zobrist, who's among the top 10 NL leaders in batting average, on-base percentage, and on-base plus slugging percentage. Baez and Zobrist have made up for the absence of third baseman Chris Bryant, who's been on the DL for nearly 2 months now. Am I correct in that assumption, or are there other factors to account for the Cubs' first place standing?
Those 2 are critical factors. There's another offensive factor I have to raise, is Anthony Rizzo. Started out the season extremely slow. He has put up statistics of roughly 30 home runs and 100 RBIs last few years, and that has become the norm and what the Cubs expect each and every year. And this year, the month of April, he was terrible. Now, the month of August, he has caught fire. He is in contention to be the player of the month. He is what Madden did was he put him at the top of the order. He started hitting. He was leading off, which is not the traditional location for him, but he was leading off. He started hitting a little bit, and he now is he's batting .286, which you never would have thought that 3 months ago. And he's on track to get close to 30 home runs and 100 RBIs again. He's got 86 RBIs right now. He's got 22 home runs, so I don't know if he's going to get 30 like he normally does, but that has been a big turnaround. So that has helped an awful lot. And we've had some timely hitting by Chris Bryant's replacement. He's a young kid that, frankly, no one had ever heard of before. David Bodie came up from the minors. It was thought that he would just, sit on the bench and get plugged in occasionally at third base. Well, he is not a young kid, really. He's about 25, 26 years old. He's been in the minors a few years. He can strike the ball really hard, and he has come in. He's been playing third base regularly. He's got 2 walk-off home runs. One of them was a grand slam last week. He's had a walk-off walk. So he has been put in very pressure situations, and he has really performed. He's, in his short period of time, I think he only has like 100 at-bats, but he's got 6 home runs and 26 RBIs, and it's 120 at-bats, and he's got 26 RBIs. So he's really produced in a short period of time. So that has helped with Bryant and the injury that he's dealing with.
Yeah, I got a question about Rizzo. Traditionally, isn't he a slow starter?
Yes, he is.
So is it a question this year of having been streaky, or is this just a prolonged slow start this season?
I think it was a prolonged slow start, a little bit longer than normal, and now he is on a solid streak. I mean, he's not going crazy in the sense of hitting something unusual, but he has been hitting home runs now at a regular pace. He's coming through in the clutch with men on base, so he's been a big help in getting the team over the top. In addition to starting pitching, which we can talk about, of course, as you mentioned, Cole Hamels is on the team. The other starters now are picking it up and pitching better. Even though John Lester carried the team in the first half. He was 12-3 in the first half. Was an all-star, made an all-star appearance. Well, he made it onto the all-star team, although he didn't play or appear simply because he had pitched that Sunday before. But he has regressed since the all-star break, and the other pitchers are picking up the slack. So that's been encouraging because he couldn't have done it, obviously, on his own. The other guys had to pick up the pace, and they have.
I definitely want to talk about the Cubs pitching, but let me get to where the Phillies are right now. After spending a considerable part of August in first place, we're now, as I said, 3.5 back and fading fast. The Nationals, who are playing .500 baseball, are starting to gain on the Phillies. Going into tonight's game, they were 8 out, and 5.5 in back of the Phils. But the Phillies have not been playing their best baseball over the last part of this month. Now, don't get me wrong, Bill. If you would have told me at the beginning of the season that the Philadelphia Phillies would be in contention as late as September, I would say that you're crazy. We got a rookie manager, Gabe Kapler, and I do agree that his positive, upbeat, dare I say, analytics-based approach has gotten all that he can out of quite a young team. But I'm sorry to say I think the Phils will fold down the stretch because our defense leaves much to be desired. We don't have a bona fide closer, and we don't have veteran leadership we need to be successful down the stretch, let alone the postseason. Now, having said that, I do want to emphasize that our general manager, Matt Klentak, after losing out to the Dodgers in the Manny Machado sweepstakes, did acquire some solid veterans. He got all-star catcher Wilson Ramos from the Nationals, who is clearly an upgrade at that position. He got power hitter Justin Bohr from Miami to come off the bench. Asdrubal Cabrera from the Mets, and just yesterday the Phils picked up Joey Bats, Jose Bautista from the Mets. Like our first baseman, Carlos Santana, who was acquired from Cleveland in the offseason, all these veterans are solid. And most, with the exception of Bohr, have postseason experience. But you gotta admit that Bautista is clearly not the player he was when he played in Toronto. And none of these other acquisitions are proven game changers in a pennant race or in the postseason. And that's what it takes to win. That's what the Cubs have. And speaking of proven veteran leadership, as I told you when the Cubs acquired Cole Hamels, the Phillies blew a golden opportunity to strengthen their pitching down the stretch by not going after him. Hamels had nothing to pitch for in Texas this season, where he was 5-9 with a 4.72 ERA, but you put him in a pennant race, and he is extremely capable of carrying a team, like he did in Philly, where he won the NLCS and the World Series MVPs in 2008, and even during his first 3 seasons in Texas when the Rangers were in contention. But I say that Klentak believed that the Phils had the starting pitching that we needed to contend with Aaron Nola and Jake Arrieta as the number 1 and 2 starters, and the trio of Nick Pivetta, Zach Eflin, and Vince Velasquez rounding out the rotation. Klentak has also said that starting pitchers must be developed within the organization because starters constitute the most fickle of trading markets. And he might be right, statistically. But he was certainly wrong on both counts when it came to Hamels. And this, Bill, is where I say analytics fall short. You really have to know the pitcher, his mental approach, competitiveness, and desire to win when you evaluate him. And the kicker is that Cole Hamels wanted to come back to Philadelphia. Now, you can rub it in, tell us just how well Hamels has pitched. And I know that he pitched very well last night, but he didn't get the decision.
Hamels has been lights out. Incredible. He's pitched in 6 games. He's got 4 wins. He's pitched 39 innings and has gotten 38 strikeouts in those 39 innings. His whip is 1.00. His ERA, as you said, is 0.69. I mean, it's been incredible on multiple fronts. One, just his performance on the mound. And I'm going to get into why he feels he's turned it around. 2, he is starting to rub off a little bit on the other pitchers because, you know, each of the starting pitchers, they get a little competitive edge, and they don't want to let the team down. And if one guy's doing well, the other guy wants to do just as well. 3, what I've heard is that in the clubhouse, he's a tremendous guy, and he will talk baseball in a sure, way with everyone else. He's extremely articulate, and I don't think it's just because of how old he is. It seems like he's been a mature person for most of his career. You can fill the listeners in on that because of he spent most of his time obviously in Philly, and everyone knows him from there. But his brief association with the Cubs, he's been a tremendous influence off of the field and in the clubhouse. And as I said, on the mound, he's been lights out. Now, he was interviewed. He was asked, why are you doing better here? Is it just a change of scenery? Is it a better defense behind you? You have something to play for? Texas was a bad environment. He was asked this in a lengthy interview 2 days ago. And he came up with something quite interesting. He said, if you recall, he was injured, I believe it was last year, for a long period of time. I think it may have been an oblique injury. I'm not too sure, but he was injured for a long period of time. He was pitching okay before that. When he came back last year, he did not pitch very well at all. He started this very well, and everyone's looking at his age and thinking, he's done, he's washed up, he's not coming back from the injury very well. What he said was he went to what he considers his best years in baseball, pitching-wise. And he said that was 2012, 2013, 2014. That range was when he pitched the best. And he pulled up tape, and he was studying his mechanics. And he's doing this now this past summer with the Texas Rangers staff. And he realizes that his front hip, his front leg, his front hip, his torso is flying out too more when he delivers. It flies out too much when he delivers to home plate. And what he was saying is that exposed the baseball too soon before being delivered. He wasn't hiding it well enough. He wasn't staying closed. He was flying open in his delivery, and he was losing command on his fastball, which then doesn't set up his slider that well, which I guess is his big strikeout pitch. So he worked on that in 3 or 4 starts at the end of his Rangers tenure in, I guess, late June and July. He wasn't getting the results statistically, but he was feeling much better, he said. He knew it was coming back. He was getting more control of the fastball, which would then set everything else up. So he was kind of right to really springboard into a much better, statistical season the rest of the year. And I think with the change of scenery and, as you said, being claimed for something along with this mechanical change now is the reasons that he's doing so well. I thought that was quite interesting, and it's a little ironic that they discovered it in Texas and then they trade him, and now the Cubs are reaping the benefit of that.
Well, you said a mouthful in terms of Cole Hamels, and I do want to address both issues that you pick up. First, the clubhouse presence that he is. He learned all of that from the 2008 through 2011 Phillies. I cannot emphasize how much of a positive influence Roy Halladay and Jamie Moyer were on Cole Hamels. After that 2008 season, when Hamels won the MVP of the NLCS and the World Series, the following year he was not the same pitcher in the postseason. Had he been, we would have had back-to-back World Championships. In fact, Hamels made the mistake of saying, "I wish the season was over," right smack in the middle of the World Series. And he was excoriated by the Philadelphia press for that. And what he really meant was he wished his season personally was over, but he was nowhere near the pitcher that he had been in the previous season. And the veterans, gathered around him and taught him, how to handle press interviews after that. And as I said, Halladay and Jamie Moyer in particular showed him how to prepare, because Hamels was never really projected more than a number 2 starter. And the reason for that, when he was coming up in the minor leagues, his first injury was to his hand. He broke his fingers in a barroom brawl in Clearwater, Florida. And then there was a question of his arm strength and biceps pulls. So a lot of people figured, well, if he could stay healthy, he could be a top of the rotation starter, but not a number 1. And of course, we saw that, he did prove people wrong. I know part of the thinking with the Phillies was that, well, he's older, and he did have some arm problems last year, and this can account for his poor start with Texas. But what they weren't looking at was his velo was not down, number 1, and his ERA is pretty much right where it was in previous seasons. So that tells me that he's not getting the run support or the offensive support from the hitters, and or he's struggling with a mechanical problem. I think you're absolutely right. When a pitcher opens up too early, if he's not close going to the plate, he is not going to be as effective, He is not going to have command, particularly of his fastball, which is Hamels' setup pitch for that slider. And once you correct that, then you're on track. And Hamels, obviously, as you said, has done that, and to his credit. And I think now being in Chicago, a place that he has warmed to very quickly, and the fans seem to have warmed to him, I look for him to have one hell of a postseason.
Yeah,
now,
I'll tell you, Bill, he's done so well. There's talk now that if the Cubs make the playoffs, who would be the Game 1 starter? And a lot of people say it should be Hamels.
Yep.
I don't know if that's going to be the case because Lester traditionally has taken on that role because he has a ton of experience. But it's interesting how in 6 games he has elevated from the hope that he would do better than Chatwood, who was frankly awful. And, so maybe he'd provide a fifth, be a better fifth starter to now possibly being the number 1 starter on the team.
Well, I do want to mention, and we've talked about this before, now with Hamels and, Chatwood and Darvish out of the picture, the Cubs have a left-handed laden starting rotation. The only right-hander you have is Kyle Hendricks. How much of an effect do you think that's going to have down the stretch?
I'm worried about that, frankly. It depends on what team you're playing and how strong of a right-handed lineup they have. Right now, it's not much of a problem, but Mike Montgomery is the 5th starter. He's kind of a swingman, been the swingman for the Cubs for the last 4 years. And when Darvish went down, Montgomery stepped in and was then the 5th starter replacing Darvish. And Chatwood continued to pitch as the worst pitcher on the staff. His walk rate is through the roof. He was leading the league in walks. And as soon as Hamels came onto the team, Chatwood was demoted to the bullpen, and now he's on the DL with a, quote, hamstring injury, unquote. Don't know really how serious it is, but he may not ever pitch again this season is my guess. Not because of the injury, but in a couple of days the rosters expand. He'll come off the DL, but unless it's a mop-up game where they're losing by, double digits or something, he probably won't pitch the rest of the season because they don't trust his ability to keep runners off the bases. Even in his rehab start right now, he's walking guys. So, but going back to the rotation, with Montgomery being a lefty, you've got 4 lefties and 1 righty right now. They had a righty go today because it was a minor league today's game was basically a minor league game. The Cubs are in the middle of a long stretch of games, so basically Madden gave most people off today. Brought up a minor leaguer to start. He happened to be a right-hander. They lost today, but after winning 7 in a row. But it's a concern down the stretch because, most teams have more right-handed batters than left-handed batters. Excuse me. I don't know the statistics, though, because, as you know, a lot of guys do pitch well. Well, a lot of lefties do pitch well against righties. Have to dive into that a little bit more. But, yeah, it's a concern, especially, I think, in the playoffs. It's going to be a concern if the Cubs make it to the playoffs.
Well, I know you'll be interested at least in one of our starters. I want to talk about Jake Arrieta, former Cub and a Cy Young Award winner with the Cubs. But if you look at our starting rotation, it is really not as formidable as the Cubs. Obviously, our ace is Aaron Nola, who is having a Cy Young-like season and perhaps maybe an MVP season. I don't know. I think he's probably closer to being an MVP than a Cy Young with DeGrom and Scherzer pitching the way they are because their numbers are slightly better. But Nola is 15-3 with 177 strikeouts and a 2.10 ERA. In his last 10 games, Nola went 6-1, including a 2-0 shutout against Washington, in which he outdueled another Cy Young candidate, Max Scherzer. Of course, Nola pitched against Scherzer last night again, and last night Nola surrendered only 1 earned run in 7 strong innings, but the Phillies went on to lose, and he got a no decision. Jake Arrieta has been on a roller coaster. I personally had higher hopes for him. His current record is 9-9 with 106 strikeouts, which is down from his previous years at this point in the season, and a 3.37 ERA. In his last 10 starts, Arrieta is 4-3 with 3 no decisions. He pitches again. He's pitching again tonight against Gio Gonzalez and the Nationals, but he is simply not the pitcher he was when he was in Chicago. His velocity is down, and so are the number of strikeouts he records per game. And where he really is struggling is with his fastball. There is so much movement on that pitch that it's difficult to control for him. And when that happens, he tries to control it by throwing with less velo, and that's when he gets into trouble. Now, on the other hand, Arrieta can at times pitch brilliantly, as he did against the Boston Red Sox on July 31st. He went 7 innings, he scattered 6 hits, surrendered just 1 earned run for a 3-1 victory that the Phillies really needed at that point to stay in first place. But again, he has simply not given us what we needed. Of the 3 remaining starters, Zach Eflin has been the best. He's 9-5, 98 strikeouts, 3.99 ERA. Then you have Pivetta, who's 7-10, and Vince Velasquez, who's 9-9. They've been disappointing, especially over the last month. The bullpen is also a concern. We had hoped that Hector Neris would be our closer at the beginning of the season, but he just did not cut it, and he was sent down. Enter Sir Anthony Dominguez, a rookie who was 1-5 with 14 saves and 4 blown saves. To his credit, I think Dominguez stepped into that role early on and did a phenomenal job, but I think he was used too much, and the expectations on him were too demanding. 2 of the 5 losses and 3 of the 4 blown saves have come over the last month, and I hope he can rebound. His last outing, he did get a save. Pat Neshek, who was an all-star a year ago, was on the DL most of the season, and I knew he blew a save yesterday. The best performer has been middle reliever Tommy Hunter, who has 23 holds. So, again, we're not where we need to be with the pitching, and we got to find another bona fide starter, and we have got to find a consistent closer. I want to ask about another more recent acquisitions the Cubs made, because it is raising a few eyebrows. And that's picking up Daniel Murphy off waivers from the Washington Nationals. I mean, there's no question that Murphy has and will help the Cubs offensively, and especially since Brian's been out. But Murphy's homophobic remarks have created some controversy in the past. And why on earth would the Cubs sign a player like that when their co-owner, Laura Ricketts, is gay? I mean, are we saying because Ricketts signed off on it? What are the Cubs saying here? That winning takes precedence over moral principle, or what?
Well, it's interesting you raise that because Daniel Murphy from his play on the field playing is really good. Offensively, second baseman, I don't think there's a better offensive second baseman in the last 3 or 4 years when you look at average and everything. He killed the Cubs in 2015 when he was playing for the Mets, and he single-handedly basically beat the Cubs that year. And they went then to the World Series. So when they first picked him up, I kind of was like, oh, a guy that we've been rooting against now is on the team. Well, offensively speaking, he's been a catalyst. He's been in 7 games so far. They're 7-0. He's been leading off. He gets, on average, 2 hits per game, a couple home runs, 5 RBIs. He was batting .400 for much of those 7 games. Now he's down to .355. So he's been really a catalyst offensively because this coincided with Addison Russell going on the DL and Baez moving from second base to shortstop. But when he arrived, the Chicago press focused on that very topic. His homophobic comments were, they brought it up to him again, and they also asked Laura Ricketts about this and if she was consulted. It was interesting what he said, which personally was quite disappointing. He was asked, what do you have to say about that? And he kind of just acknowledged. He didn't deny it. He just kind of acknowledged it and kind of danced around it with some non-specific comments. And that part of the interview was finished with the question of, what would you say to the gay community and the gay fans of the Chicago Cubs? Now, understand the little background, and then I'll give you his answer. The background to this is not only is Laura Ricketts, one of the co-owners of the Cubs, gay, but Wrigleyville, which is where Wrigley Field obviously is located, and the neighborhood surrounding Wrigley Field, is adjacent to what is commonly referred to as Boys Town, which is the description of the gay community area in Chicago, which is just east of the ballpark, about 4 blocks. And the Cubs have a very strong relationship with that community. They sponsor floats and the Gay Pride Parade that occurs every year. They're responsible. They have a float in that parade, and they always have done that to the neighborhood. But now with the Ricketts family owning the club and Laura Ricketts, it's even more pronounced, and the bonds and the connections between the gay community clubs I think are even stronger. So in light of that background, they asked him that question. What would you say to the gay community and the gay fans of Chicago? And his response was, well, I hope they come out and support the team. It was a layup question to basically say, I apologize, I'm sorry, it was a question meant to be like, what, based on your comments, what do you say to the gay community of Chicago based on your comments? And he dodged that. He didn't discuss what he had said. He just said, well, I hope they come out and support the team. So it tells you that his personal feelings haven't changed. And by the way, to be clear, what he said was, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't have it in front of me, so maybe I'm not being totally fair. But what he said is that he doesn't agree with that lifestyle, insinuating that it was a lifestyle choice, and I don't agree with that. It's pretty much what he was saying, and just disagreeing with the whole gay community. I don't agree with that lifestyle. I'm not supporting of that lifestyle. So it was a bit of a slight. And this comment, I believe, was made a few years ago when he was still in New York, actually.
Yeah, the question revolved around Billy Beane, not the Billy Beane of the Oakland A's, but Billy Beane, who was an openly gay player.
Oh, yeah. So I was going to get to that. Right. So let me interrupt because there are two aspects to the Billy Beane part. Billy Beane, the director of inclusion for Major League Baseball. Billy Beane himself is a gay man, and post those comments, apparently Billy Beane and Murphy have developed a respectful relationship. And he cited that. Murphy cited that look, I'm friends with Billy Beane. Billy Beane, we've discussed this and we're okay. So that was cited. On the other side Laura Ricketts was asked what happened, was she involved in the decision of bringing Murphy to the team? And the response was yes, she was consulted, she was asked, and what they did is they contacted Billy Beane. So the Cubs and Laura Ricketts contacted Billy Beane and asked, what do you think? How are we doing with this guy? Is this something? They wanted Billy Beane's opinion on it before the waiver claim was placed. Actually, I shouldn't say that. Before the trade was made,
right.
And Billy Beane was issued a voice of support towards Daniel Murphy. So with that, and it was asked if he didn't support him, if he said negative stuff, would you have made the trade? And the Cubs said no. So apparently all these things came together, and so Laura Ricketts was okay with it because Billy Beane was okay with it. And, it's interesting because 2 years ago when the Cubs made a similar trade to another offender, not homosexually, but spousal abuse, they traded for around Chapman from the Yankees. And
right.
Chapman was mired in a spousal abuse case, and similar things happened. So you know what? I think professional teams sometimes turn away to some of the negativity if they can win games, which is maybe a sad commentary.
If nothing else, that is providing some interesting feeder to your season. We're running out of time, Bill, and I really want to get to Joe Maddon and some of the similarities between Maddon and Kapler. And I do want to preface my remarks regarding Kapler because I have been critical of him on this podcast on several occasions, and yet I do have to say that I have tremendous respect for where he has led this team at this point in the season because he had a very, very questionable beginning of the season. And like many managers who have really no background to speak of, they have to rely on their relationships with players and their personality if they don't have a record to run on. And Kapler has done magnificently having his players backs, building a solid clubhouse, and I only hope that when in the next year, when the Phillies start getting these big veteran free agents, that the respect will still be there for him because nothing can blow a team apart like a bunch of veterans who disagree with an analytical approach to baseball. And that's where I'm really going with this. There is clearly a difference in terms of managerial experience between Maddon and Kapler. Maddon has more than a dozen years as a major league manager under his belt. But both of them place a strong emphasis on analytics. Let's take two examples. The defensive shift and defensive flexibility in terms of positions. Now, you pointed out before that Maddon uses the shift and platoons as well as places fielders in many different positions depending upon who's a hot hitter and who is pitching. And he also does that in the postseason. Kapler's the same way. He employs the defensive shift and he plays his fielders in different positions. For example, Rhys Hoskins, really the person who's becoming our franchise player, came up as a first baseman, but he's the starting left fielder. Similarly, Scott Kingery is a second baseman, but he was a regular shortstop before the Phillies acquired Cabrera, and he continues to play spot starting as shortstop. But I have to question how wise that strategy is for both the Phillies and the Cubs. When the Cubs are ranked 20th in defense of the 30 MLB teams, 20th out of the 30 teams. This is according to ESPN stats. 77 errors so far this season, a 984 fielding percentage. And the Phillies are even worse. They're 29th out of 30 teams, 979 fielding percentage, and 102 errors. The only team that's worse are the St. Louis Cardinals. What do you think? Is this overdone? is there some real validity to these defensive shifts, playing by the numbers, and playing fielders out of position, although they don't do that as much with the Cubs as the Phillies have?
Yeah, there's a lot there, so let me break it down a little bit. I was surprised when you mentioned the Cubs being 20th in defense, because you can point to so many positives. A few Gold Gloves or Golden Glovers are on there on the field. Hayward, Rizzo, Contreras leads the league in throwing people off, picking people off, whether it's stealing second base or backpicking on first base, or stealing second or third, or backpicking at first, or even backpicking at the other bases. Surprisingly, Schwarber has a cannon of an arm because he is a former catcher, and he leads the league in assists from left field. He's thrown 9 or 10 guys out from left field. So there are, and Almora is really a tremendous center fielder. But I think some of the routine plays they'll make missteps on, concentration. They may be trying too hard. And if Contreras is, he's a very energetic type of guy, and he's trying to throw guys out, and he may throw a ball away. So then the errors start to rack up. But when you're making errors and you're getting positive, when you're being aggressive and you're getting positive results, and that aggression sometimes creates errors, there are positives that are occurring with the negatives, and they tend to offset. So if Contreras is making an abnormal amount of errors on throws, but he's leading the league in throwing people out, that's offsetting some of those errors. So some of that stuff can be misleading. I read somewhere where even though I was under the assumption that the Cubs do a large number of shifting, meaning moving the third baseman into short right field when you have a left-handed batter at the plate, apparently the Cubs do not as much shifting as most other teams. And I was quite surprised at that, because I know Madden always, he was one of the innovators of doing some of this shifting, or bringing it back. Shifting's been around for a long time, but doing exaggerating shifting and bringing that, making it more popular. I think Madden led the league in doing that when he was with Tampa. But apparently he's tempered that a little bit, or other teams are exceeding it now. So that's kind of an interesting thing. But you made another interesting point about moving players around out of position, quote unquote. For the Cubs, at least, they have 3 or 4 players that are genuinely can play multiple positions, and there's not a letdown. Baez can play shortstop because he came up through the minor league system as a shortstop and moved to second because Russell's considered a better shortstop, and that's even questionable, quite frankly. Bryant is a good athlete, so they put him in the outfield. He's adequate in the outfield, but his true position's third base. They have other guys that rotate throughout the outfield and the infield. They have probably, I would say, on the team 5 or 6 guys who can play 3 different positions and play them well. Now, not Golden Glove well, but play them well. And the reason I'm mentioning all this is it allows, because of what Madden does, by playing everyone a lot, it creates a tremendous amount of depth. So even if not playing in most position, they're getting a lot of at-bats, and when an injury occurs, you can slide these guys into some of the other positions and not have any letdown. If you look at the Cubs on the DL, they've had 2 terrible starting pitchers, Darvish and Chatwood. We discussed that already. What we didn't mention was their closer, Brendan Morrow, who was, I think, 22 out of 23 at the All-Star break. He's been on the DL since the All-Star break. He's been on the DL for the last 2 months. So they've had a lot of weaknesses. Bryant has been on the DL pretty much since the All-Star break with a bad shoulder. But they've been able to slide a lot of guys. Russell's now on the DL, and they've been able to just slide a lot of guys around, and they're fresh because they've been playing a lot. They've gotten a lot of at-bats. So even though they may be out of position and even though that may result in an additional error, overall, you're strengthening your team. Bryant last year, for example, played a lot of outfield. He hasn't played much outfield this year, but last year he played a lot of outfield because Hayward was awful last year. This year he's having a good season. Last 2 years, 2016, 2017, Hayward was barely batting .220. And they had to bench him, even though he's a Golden Glove outfielder and was getting a lot of assists in the outfield and making tremendous plays on reading fly balls into the gaps and into the corners. He would be benched occasionally, and to keep Bryant's bat in the lineup, they put Bryant in right field. Now, did Bryant create an error or two, or did Bryant maybe not catch a ball that Hayward would have caught? Yeah, I almost guarantee that. But the overall, what you're weighing is whoever is playing third base for Bryant, is that guy going to have a better offensive production than Hayward is in left field? And if you're going to have now two guys providing good offensive production and, hurting your defense just a little bit, you kind of weigh that and you kind of say, okay, we're going to go with that for 7 innings. And then when it's close, if we're ahead, and it's close, Hayward came back into the game for the 8th and 9th inning, or 7th, 8th, and 9th inning, depending on what the batting order and the lineup, where they were in the batting order and when Hayward would be inserted back in the game. So, there's a lot to the defensive statistics, but it's offset by a lot of positives that you achieve by being aggressive and by moving guys around to provide the better offensive lineup that would then maybe offset a defensive miscue. I wanted to make one other point. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just want to point out the irony here. And the irony is, for all the statistical analysis, the shifts, playing players out of position, the irony is that in the end it doesn't make a damn bit of difference defensively, because the Phillies are in second place, the Cubs are in first place, and St. Louis, which has the worst team defensively, is leading in the wild card race. So you tell me how important defense is to winning ball games. And that's why I just got to laugh when you come back to the analytics again. The shift is nothing more than trying to make baseball more entertaining for people, because strategically it has tremendous restrictions. And the shift in adding exaggerated shifts is nothing more than just trying to add a little bit more strategy to the game. And it frankly doesn't make a damn bit of difference in the end.
I was just going to say the shift, I think, is going to fade away eventually when players start to hit to all fields, which is not happening right now and hasn't happened for a number of years. But I think there will be eventually a shift back to a more traditional hitter, not someone either willing to strike out and hit home runs and that's it, but someone who's just willing to choke up on the bat and hit the opposite way. And once that comes back into vogue, then you're not going to see as many shifts. So I think it's also that you see a lot of shifts because so many people are not willing to hit it the other way, which I find crazy. But there's one other point I wanted to make. You asked about comparing Madden and Kapler. And there's one aspect, I don't know Kapler well, but there's one aspect that, as you said, when the Phillies, and they're obviously an up-and-coming team, and when they start adding some veteran presence, veteran players to the clubhouse, go over well with the young manager and his analytics and his, wanting to move guys around and play people in odd positions. Madden, and it's been talked about a lot this year because a lot of people feel Madden's doing a really good job. He is notorious for being a player's manager. He does not have heavy-handed rules. He encourages people not to show up early. He thinks too much baseball is a bad thing. He encourages people not to hit, hundreds and hundreds of balls in the batting cages every day. He basically says, put your work in as you see fit. Don't overdo it. and be ready to play. So what he's created is a culture that, as long as you have mature people that are not taking advantage of it, a culture of a lot of providing, affording the players a level of maturity, giving them leeway and saying, you're mature, you take care of yourself, and I'm not going to give you a lot of rules. So a lot of players love that. My point is this: because he is such a player friend, a very player-friendly manager, he is able to go to veterans and young players alike and say, we don't have a starting 8 field position players. We've got 12 guys on this team that can start for most teams in Major League Baseball, and they're going to all play. So you've got a lot of guys with 300 at-bats, already this season. Baez and Rizzo play the most. Bryant would be up there, too, if he wasn't injured. But everyone else has lost probably 100 at-bats because others are playing when there's a matchup, righty-lefty matchup, and he's bringing all these other guys. No one argues about it. No one's pissed off about it because he is a player's manager. He allows them to have so much leeway, but this is where he puts his foot down, and he's going to play the guys he wants to play when he's going to play them, and that's it. And that goes for the rookies. It goes for the veterans. He pulls guys when he wants to pull them. Some of the veterans will be the pitchers. Some of the veteran pitchers will be upset with him. Arrieta wasn't thrilled with them a lot when he was on the Cubs at times because he'd pull them an inning early. Lester gets a little upset. But it's an interesting dynamic. So he lets them do what they want in the clubhouse, but when it's on the field, he's calling the shots. He's not playing everyone. And you know what? That hurts people's statistics. And that hurts their contract negotiating powers when it comes. If you're short 5 home runs or 20 RBIs from other guys, your contract negotiating ability is going to be hurt a little bit. But he's doing it in the name of winning, and he's got a tremendous track record, and he endears himself to all the players. So that's
there's absolutely no question that Joe Maddon has created a culture in Chicago that is extremely successful. But why has he been able to do that successfully? Why do players like Lester and Arrieta in the past pull in their horns when they have a difference? Because they look at the guy's record. Maddon is a winner. He was a winner in Tampa Bay. He is a winner in Chicago. He's got a record. We got a rookie manager with 1 year of low minor league managerial ball experience, and he is running on relationships and personalities, and he does the same thing that Maddon does. He rotates whenever he feels someone's not delivering. He benches them and puts someone else in. Our third baseman, Michael Franco, is a classic example of that. Franco was all but gone. I'm convinced that they just couldn't dump him somewhere. And when he found out that the trading deadline passed, well, then he started playing all of a sudden. But you don't do that with someone like Bryce Harper. You don't do that with someone like, hopefully we'll get this guy down the road, but Mike Trout. Some of these guys have got to play through their problems or their difficulties. So once again, you got a complete manager in Joe Maddon. You got a guy who's personable. He's a player's manager, but he's got a record. And the veterans, and especially the successful, the star veterans, will respect it. And as I said, pulling their horns if they have a difference. I don't know if that's going to work with Kapler because he doesn't have the record. But we'll see. And again, I know I'm being very critical of him. I think he's done a tremendous job, but I really question, has he gone as far as he could go? I hate to bring this analogy up, but these guys, this Phillies team, is starting to remind me of the '64 team that was up by 6.5 games with 12 left to play and blew it 10 in a row. And things happened that they couldn't have predicted, but it was also their youth, their inexperience. And I think it's as Kapler keeps on saying, well, we got a challenge. Yeah. Well, 30 games, that's a big challenge. We're going to see what happens to the Phillies. I personally don't think that they have the mettle or the veteran leadership, even with all the acquisitions they made, to make it to the postseason. I hope I'm wrong. God, I hope I'm wrong. But I don't see it. They're fading right now. Anyway, I got to get to this last point because we're almost over here. And I want your view. We're not even sure. We were talking about this before the podcast. We're not even sure what the matchups are this weekend because the ESPN has changed the matchups from 9:00 this morning to just recently. But we think that Friday night, Pivetta is going to take the mound for the Phillies against Quintana. And we're uncertain who's going to be pitching on Saturday. It might be Velazquez facing Hendricks, or it might be Eflin facing Hendricks. And if Eflin pitches on Saturday, it will be, I guess, Nola against Lester. If not, it'll be Eflin against Lester on Sunday. What are you looking for in this upcoming series from the Cubs, Bill?
Well, the one thing we won't see, and I'm disappointed, Cubs won't be facing Arrieta, and the Phillies won't be facing Hamels. Apparently both guys, due to the rotation sequencing, won't be facing each other's former teams. So that's a shame. But the Cubs are coming off of what has it been, a 7-game winning streak. I think they've won a number of games over I know it's been 7 in a row, and I think it's, I don't know, maybe 10 out of 12, something like that. But the Cubs are entering into a long road trip, 11 games, 11 nights in 4 different cities, and they're playing in the middle of 23 straight games, and that's why Madden gave everyone the day off basically today, and they ended up losing against the Mets. They're going to be going down to the Braves tomorrow for a 1-game makeup. So hopefully we can help you guys there by beating the Braves. They'll be rested because, as I said today, they played a lot of minor leaguers or bench players or guys that, haven't played an awful lot. Coming in, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be negative, but I think the Phillies are in a little bit of trouble too. I think the Phillies are on the downside just with their mojo. Atlanta has propelled past the Phillies in the last 2 weeks. And what I think you would need to look at in terms of the Cubs starting pitching, Quintana has been up and down. He I shouldn't say lost, but he has difficulty with his control. Hendricks, up until the last 3-4 starts, and he has been very good. But look for Hendricks, who's going to be pitching on Saturday, if he can get out of the first inning. Hendricks, all season long, has had difficulty with the first inning, even after he has now been pitching well the last 3, 4, 5 starts. His first inning is it's brutal. Walking guys, giving up hits. Once he gets into a groove, he's gotten much better last week. So look for that, if he's getting out of the first inning unscathed or not. And Lester, even though he was 12-3 in the first half of the season, I think is like 2-3 or 2-4 the second half of the season. And he's pitched well and he's pitched poorly. His last outing, he got hit, but he survived 5 innings. So, and they ended up winning the game because the Cubs came back. But he was not pitching his normal, the way he normally pitches. So he has been up and down. So you're going to be facing, Quintana's been up and down, Lester's been up and down, and Hendricks seems to be back on track. But let's see if Hendricks gets out of the first inning. So that'll be interesting. I think that's what I'd be looking at. And you guys could easily win 2 out of 3 if those starting pitchers aren't playing well. But the Cubs' bats have been pretty alive, and they've been hitting pretty well. And I think one final point, Bryant is coming back. Don't know the exact date, but remember Saturday is when they can September 1st when they can expand the rosters. So I think Bryant and Morrow are going to be coming back pretty soon, and I think you'll see him. I think you'll see Bryant, if not coming back when they play Atlanta tomorrow. He'll be back for the Phillies over the Labor Day weekend, and he'll be playing. Whenever Madden brings someone back, he plays them and plays them right away. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. He has had a shoulder injury, and to remedy that, he has been taking he takes a lot of BPs, batting practice swings, which has injured his shoulder, I think, over time. So he's learning how to hit with both hands, keeping both hands on the bat through the entire swing as opposed to releasing the top hand. And by keeping both hands, his follow-through won't be as exaggerated. So it'll be interesting to see if he brings that swing to game day at-bats, because that's how he's been swinging in the batting cages and stuff. So I'm going to be looking for that too.
What I'm looking for out of the Phillies is I need a quality start by Pivetta. If Velasquez is pitching in this series, I need a quality start from him. I need Eflin to continue the quality performance that he has given. I need the bullpen not to blow saves. We got to settle that problem. And despite the fact that we do have an offense, it does knock in runs, we've still been stranding a lot of runners. That's got to stop too. I think you're right. I think that when these pitchers are on, that they could take 2 out of 3 from anybody, including the Cubs. But I just don't know what's going to show up, particularly at the tail end of the bullpen, and that really worries me. Listen, thanks for being with us, Bill. It might be a long shot as far as the Phillies are concerned, but just maybe the Fightins and the Cubs will meet in the postseason. And if that's the case, I'm coming to Chicago and you're coming to Philadelphia. All right?
That would be great. You know, if the Phillies make the wild card and the Cubs maintain the best record in the National League, Cubs play the wild card winner.
Yep.
And that may be the best chance for the two teams to play against one another. And that would be a load of fun. So, absolutely. I look forward to that matchup. And we can talk about the teams head-to-head, facing each other head-to-head next time around.
Great. Thank you, Philly fans, for tuning in. See you next week for another podcast of Philadelphia baseball, past, present, and personal. This is Bill Kashatus, rounding third and heading home on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network.